Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adedugba. The top stories are this hour. Vice President Kashim Shettima visits as death toll from Borno suicide attacks rises to 32. Court dismisses Nnamdi Kanu's ₦1 billion suit against the Nigerian government. Mauritania's incumbent, Ghazouani, wins re-election with 56.12% of votes. And details shortly. We begin in Nigeria with court matters where Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja on Monday dismissed the fundamental human rights suit filed by the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, against the federal government. Kanu in the suit is seeking ₦1 billion in damages from the Attorney General of the Federation and the Department of State Services for alleged rights violation. Kanu claimed that the DSS and its Director General violated his right to fair hearing by allegedly preventing his lawyers from having unhindered access with him while he's been detained in preparation for his defense in his criminal trial. Omotosho, while delivering a judgment on the suit, held that Kanu failed to provide credible evidence to sustain his claims. The Nigeria Air Force has debunked the information in circulation that a helicopter belonging to it crashed in the Gabi Council area of Kaduna State. NAF spokesman, Air Vice Marshal Edward Gabwet, who made this known in a statement, also warned against the spread of fake news and unconfirmed information. Recall residents of the area claimed to have witnessed the pilot emerging from the wreckage after the crash. According to Gabwet, one of NAF's unmanned aerial vehicle experienced a mishap after takeoff for a mission at a location near Rumji village, about 15 kilometers from the base, and there were no casualties on board or on the ground. He said investigations has commenced to determine the cause of the mishap. Away from that, 2 persons have lost their lives in the early hours of Monday when a passenger bus rammed into a truck along the Shagamu-Benin Expressway. And this is just as 4 other persons sustained varying degrees of injuries, while 14 escaped unhurt. The spokesperson for the Traffic Compliance and Enforcement Agency, TRACE, Babatunde Akinbiyi, said the accident occurred due to speeding by the bus driver. He said this led to loss of control and eventual collision with the truck. The victims are 15 males and 5 females, with 4 injured and 2 dead. The TRACE spokesperson disclosed the remains of the dead victims were deposited at the Olabisi Onabanjo University Teaching Hospital, while the injured were taken to the same hospital for treatment. We head to Borno State, where Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima says the death toll from the multiple suicide bomb attacks in the northeastern Nigerian town of Goza over the weekend has risen to 32. Shettima made this known after visiting the hospital in Maiduguri, where some of the wounded are being treated. 4 female suicide bombers, suspected to be members of the Boko Haram group, on Saturday detonated explosives at different locations, resulting in the deaths of military personnel and civilians. Earlier, Inko Taria Ipalibo, a security expert, spoke to us on these developments.
Haram has not been decimated as opined by the government, and the tactics being deployed now shows that there is an extreme radicalism that is taking place within the northeastern region, particularly among women. From the intelligence that has been gathered, several women were trained for this purpose, and they've just deployed a few of them. When they are being recruited, it is easy to recruit and radicalize female women into suicide bombing. The script being played out by the terrorists is not new. They know that women are vulnerable. They know they are extremely emotional. And so it's easy to work on their psyches, easy to work on them and get them to become victims of the...
And now let's go to a seizure story in Nigeria, where the Nigeria Customs Service seized a significant cache of arms and ammunition at the Port Harcourt Area 2 Command in Onne. The Controller General, Adebola, announced on Monday that the acting on intelligence, customs officers inspected a suspicious 40-foot container from Turkey on June 21st, 2024, discovering 844 rifles and 112,500 rounds of live ammunition hidden among doors, furniture, plumbing fittings, and leather bags valued at 4.17 billion naira. Now, 3 suspects were detained and the investigation is underway. Additionally, on June 29, 2024, 8 40-foot containers with drugs and used clothes valued at 13.92 billion naira were intercepted. Adeniyi praised the robust risk management system and collaboration with intelligence communities for this. The arms will be handed over to the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons for further investigation. Food insecurity is on the rise in Nigeria, with millions of people struggling to access basic necessities like food. The country's food crisis is worsening, and experts warn of dire consequences for national security and economic stability. Our correspondent Juliet Roland tells us more.
Nigeria is facing a severe food crisis with over 20 million people lacking access to sufficient food. The country's food insecurity rate has risen by 30% in the past year alone, with some states experiencing rates as high as 50%.
I went to buy bread and the woman just came in. The woman requested for what? Garri and sugar. One, this woman is elderly. She's no longer a young lady. She must have children that are grown up. So she's buying garri, 1 cup of garri, 1 milk cup of garri, and sugar, 50 naira. What is that going to do for her for the night? What about the children? That is how sad the situation in this country is these days. So it's really sad. I don't know how best to advise the government to make the price stable. But as it is right now, they just need to make food available.
The crisis is attributed to a combination of factors, including conflict, climate change, poverty, and poor agricultural practices. The consequences will be severe, with food insecurity fueling social unrest, crime and terrorism, while also exacerbating malnutrition, stunting and mortality rates among children.
There's climate change that the entire world is dealing with. And this is not peculiar to Nigeria. There's climate change in the world, there's flooding, there's, farmers are not able to produce at optimal levels anymore. At the same time, Nigeria is now being faced with the issue of conflict. Our farmers are being displaced from their farms. So what do you expect from that scenario? Low productivity in the country.
Experts recommend a multifaceted approach to address the crisis, including increased investment in agriculture, conflict resolution, social protection programs, and climate resilience initiative. The government must also address corruption and inefficiencies in the agricultural sector to ensure food security for all Nigerians.
Farmers need to be able to access quality inputs. Secondly, they need access to the right advice. The third cardinal point is access to markets. And then fourthly, the farmers need access to credit. The government needs to step in and provide all the support that the farmers need at this time.
Nigeria's food insecurity crisis requires immediate attention and action. The government, private sector and international community must work together to address the root causes of the crisis and ensure food security for all Nigerians.
ECOWAS parliamentarians say maintaining regional cohesion is critical to sustaining development and integration across West Africa. At the 35th meeting of the Committee on Administration and Finance, the regional bloc says the losses incurred by withdrawing nations underscore the collective gains achieved through regional participation. Now, this follows the pullout of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from the Economic Community of West African States last year. Let's now tell you that the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Kadoso, has called for increased regional collaboration to boost financial stability and growth in West Africa. And speaking at the 10th meeting of the College of Supervisors for Non-Bank Financial Institutions in Abuja, he highlighted the importance of unity among member states. And this event, hosted by the West African Monetary Institute, focused on non-bank financial sector. Kadoso praised the recent adoption of the Model Act for non-bank financial institutions, marking progress towards harmonized supervision and resilience. He also addressed the impact of fintech innovations and emphasized the need for robust cybersecurity and risk-based supervision. Climate risk regulation was also highlighted as a priority. The Nigeria Federal Fire Service says it is modernizing its training curriculum to take care of emerging changes in firefighting. The Controller General of the service, who made this known in Abuja during the inauguration of the committee, started with birthing a new training guide expected to elevate the service to be at par with other sister agencies under Nigeria's Ministry of Interior.
We have the board that comprises of fire service, correctional service, civil defense, and immigration service. And the curriculum has to be the same because we have the same promotion, we have the same exam, and we have the same rank. In that line, our curriculum should not be different.
The curriculum is where the tire meets the road. When you train, there must be a standard. You don't just train abeyance. There must be a standard so that people you train in 2024 will be the same crop of people when they come out 2034. There is a Bible with which you train, and that is the curriculum. If the curriculum is not there, then anybody can get a training from any place and bring it to the Federal Fire Service.
You're live with News Central Television. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. And now to health matters, where President Bola Tinubu has signed an executive order to suspend import duties and value-added tax on essential medical supplies imported into the country. And this is aimed at easing the high cost of locally produced pharmaceuticals, diagnostics, and medical devices such as needles and syringes and biologicals, among others. Our correspondent, Bettina Unwili, tells us more.
As a result of overdependence and reliance on importation, Nigeria is currently battling a national shortage in drug supply as multinational pharmaceutical companies like GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, and Sanofi exit the country. The suspension of taxes on imported pharmaceuticals, which is set to bring about substantial changes, is a significant policy change aimed at improving the nation's health sector.
Normal before, like no-nuts, we always buy like 1, 2, some 1, 5, but now to get no-nuts you have like 4,000, some area 3, 5. So, but these days we go for herbs because a lot of people can't afford drugs these days.
For example, Ampiclox Bicham, a card Previously, I think it's 800 naira to be or so, but now a card is almost 5,000, 6,000 naira. Then the box itself, it's almost 60,000, 70,000. So treating malaria or infection right now, it's really on the high side.
Malaria, for example, and typhoid these days is very, very in a high cost now. Before you can get malaria, maybe 700 to 850. But now, if you don't have 3,000 or more, even more, you can't treat malaria now.
The suspension of taxes on imported pharmaceuticals marks a pivotal moment in Nigeria's healthcare journey.
We must harness the growth potential.
With the government's commitment to improving access to affordable medication, the health sector is poised for significant positive change.
The pharmaceutical sector is the sector that Nigeria should see as their own sector to thrive in the continent. By making this happen, it means that many Nigerians who are manufacturing right now will be able to play strongly. This particular executive order, I see from two ends: having access to the ingredients for manufacturing and creating markets for them. The pharmaceutical sector is overregulated. The government should, of course, it doesn't mean that you should slow down on quality, but that regulation should be somehow encouraging.
As Nigeria moves forward with this progressive policy, the hope is that every citizen will soon feel the impact of a more accessible and affordable healthcare system. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
And to discuss this, I am joined by pharmacist Michael Evans, MD, CEO of Advantage Pharmaceuticals Limited. Good evening. Glad to have you join me.
Good evening. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. Let me start by asking you, how important is President Bola Tinubu's executive order in removing tariffs, excise duties, and also VAT on imported pharmaceuticals?
Thank you very much. If you check, COVID-19 opened our eyes to a lot of things. Before going forward, I want to say this. When somebody does well, I need to give them kudos. When they don't do well, I need to find a way to say, okay, this is not going to run. But this is a very, very laudable thing the government has done. This is one thing I've seen that they've really, really done, and it's good. If you check, with the living of certain multinationals, medicines have become, just like your correspondent mentioned a while ago, medicines have skyrocketed, the prices have skyrocketed, and most people, again, like somebody mentioned too, are now venturing to look at what they call them, herbal medicines and all that, traditional medicines to get themselves treated. So, but with this order that allow importation without tax, importation of excipients, raw materials, one or two finished pharmaceuticals, it will help the local manufacturers. Therefore means that those that are manufacturing like Ecomed, Fitsin, Emzo and Co. can freely now import raw materials without taxes and VATs and all that, and be able to make these products and make them less expensive, okay, to the end user, because people are groaning in pain. Imagine trying to feed and trying to get those. So this order is a very, very, I think it's long overdue. And this is where we should be at the moment. I mentioned earlier about COVID. If you remember, COVID opened our eyes to a lot. You find out that everybody was like to their tents, oh Israel. Well, that was the case at that time. People were trying to manage whatever they have for their own pace, for their own people. And Nigeria was just there. A country of about 220 million people, and then we can't really boast of making hand gloves for ourselves. We can't really boast of making things like ibuprofen and co for ourselves. The only thing that's not important in Nigeria is about it's just water.
Just to come in there, you said this is, is a very laudable and then good order, but I was just wondering what potential challenges or even criticisms could arise from a case where you have zero tariff and also where you have zero excise duties. What do you think?
Well, the criticism I see here, it's supposed to be women for all. What I see, some people might not like this, okay? But at the end, the focus should be the patient, the end users, sincerely speaking. The focus should be, but those big boys at the top might not like this idea because, one, customers especially, customers has a target, and now there's no tariff for that, and they have a target to meet. You understand what I'm saying? So they might not be happy about this. And for those that would think that it's not going to be free for all importation of medicines and all that, I don't think that's what the order is all about. The order is actually favoring local manufacturers. It means that you can make things like syringes now in the country, you don't need to import it anymore. In short, before now, if I must tell you this, NAFDAC was doing what they call 5+5. 5+ means that, okay, you give it 5 years for you to have import permit to bring in certain products. After 5 years, you expect that you should be making them locally in Nigeria. So you see, this order is coming at a time that is going to favor what NAFDAC has been trying to do. Sincerely speaking, it means that people are now looking what? Manufacture more. If you can't have a factory, if you don't have a factory, you can now say, okay, let me partner with the factory owner, or let me do what they call contract manufacturing in-house.
It's a good thing you touched on NAFDAC as a body. I mean, you know, what specific impact do you think NAFDAC as a body now, and are looking at the Director General, anticipate from this executive order on the country's drug and also health security? Good.
See, they on our own has done a wonderful job, sincerely speaking. If you go way back, she's been pushing for this executive order, or this zero tariff and all that way before now. And it's coming at a very, very good time during our own tenure and all that. Look, NAFDAC, look at what NAFDAC did. Like I said, 5 for 5, okay? And there are some products again that they put capped on us, and you cannot bring any more into the country. For instance, things like osmosis painkiller. Imagine people trying to bring paracetamol. You can't do that anymore. Or bring cataflam or diclofenac. You can't do that anymore. Even things down to what they call volatile, one of the brand names, augmentin and all that. People are talking about GSK liver and all that. You can't bring those things anymore. Why? Because we have manufacturers in the country that can manufacture these things. But what's hindering them? The VAT, the tariffs on the APIs, on the raw materials coming in. But with this tariff being lifted now, those manufacturers that are within, people like Ecomed, like Fitsin, like Emzor, like Nimet, they can now freely bring in these things, okay, at a lower cost because of the tariff being off, and then make them, and then, I mean, the drug entry market at a subsidized rate. That's what is going to happen now. So the terms of saying, okay, you can have, like somebody mentioned, Bicham for maybe 2,000, 3,000 and all that, you can now get coamosiclav or amoxicillin for far, far less than that because it's being made now local. And the benefits are enormous. One, job creation, definitely. Retention of staff, okay? People can, I mean, those people manufacturing, I mean, this is going to be a good win for them, okay? And then the end user, especially the patient, because I keep on saying, at the end of all these things, it's the patient that matters. Okay. Some of us that above this middle class and might not only feel this, but those people down there, they're not feeling this. So the patient will get at a cheaper rate or less expensive rate. Okay, those unique factories can now smile to the bank at least. Okay, the staff that are there can have at least some increment in their salary. So it's a win-win. The government in a way to can equally get some tax or whatever through this what they call it, through VAT and all that, or withholding tax from this companies that are manufacturing.
If I may, Mr. Heavens.
Yeah, please.
I mean, you touched on locally manufactured drugs and, of course, the myriad benefit. Now, talking about locally manufactured drugs, how might eliminating tariffs and also taxes on imported pharmaceuticals affect our locally manufactured drugs to be very competitive, even with the foreign drugs? Good. If you check, if you remember what I said NAFDAC has put a ceiling on about 38 or more products right now. Do you understand? It means that even with this tariff being lifted, okay, for imported pharmaceuticals, they cannot bring in such products anymore. Do you understand? So it's favoring. The policy looks very, very open, not withholding anybody. But on one hand, we have regulatory bodies. One of them is NAFDAC that will ensure, look, you cannot bring in coamosiclav, you cannot bring in diclofenac, you cannot bring in paracetamol. Meanwhile, there are people within the country that can make all these things. So it's going to be a win, a big win for the local manufacturers. On the surface, look as if, okay, fine, it's not a free-for-all, everybody can bring anything they want to bring. That's not true. The NAFDAC still stands its ground in a way. Sincerely speaking, with this 38 product, and even going short with this lifting of this with this executive order right now, I can tell the number of products that are going to be capped or sealed from being brought into the country are going to increase. Why? Because we have manufacturers in-house that can make this, and the only hinge that has been that the tariffs has been too heavy. You bring the raw materials at a certain price, try to make them here, you run at a loss. But with this tariff being lifted, with this EO now being given, I'm telling you, the local manufacturers are going to do quite very, 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 very well. There's no doubt about that one. All right, and that's a fine place to wrap up. Indeed, we do hope local manufacturers and also local production is encouraged to help improve our economy as a country. But thank you so much for your perspective on the news. Michael Heavens, MD, CEO, Advantage Pharmaceuticals Limited. Many thanks once again. Thank you. You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. In celebration of the 248th Independence Day, the U.S. Consulate in Lagos is hosting guests from all walks of life at a residence of the Consul General in Lagos. The celebration is an annual event which takes place a few days before the actual Independence Day, which falls on 4th of July. We're now joined by our correspondent, Bernard Abeid, who is reaching us live from the residence of the Consul General. Bernard, good evening. Glad to have you join me.
Thank you for having me, Adebola. Good evening.
Yes, just bring us up to speed as to what's happening where you are.
So, Adebola, like you rightly mentioned, the U.S. Independence celebration is the iconic 4th of July celebration where the entire country is lit up with fireworks. Now, we are in Nigeria, of course, but the celebration here today makes it seem like it's the United States. I'll step out of the way so you can see what's going on here is the Consul General himself and I think his lovely wife are receiving guests at the moment, taking handshakes from guests. You can see the Nigerian flag and the U.S. flag right there in the background. And so he's been receiving guests from about 6 p.m. this evening, and that's the queue of the guests you can see right there. Now, besides that, the entire scenario, the atmosphere, has been made to seem like you are in the United States. If you've been to the United States, what they do on 4th of July is have a barbecue, have grills, hot dogs and stuff. So there are different canopies, different tents around, all marked in different states in America. There's Dallas, there's New York, there's Texas, and so forth and so on. And you also mentioned the guests from all walks of life. We have politicians, we have diplomats here, we have the Commissioner of Police here, and the Lagos State PPRO for the police as well. And of course, influencers also around here. So basically, it's like having a feel or a taste of the United States while here in Nigeria.
It's interesting, Bernard. We understand this event is an annual event, but Bernard, what makes this year's celebration special?
Well, I think, of course, what will make this year's celebration special is the fact that there's going to be an election this year in the United States in November. But prior to that election, we already saw one presidential debate between President Joe Biden and contestant, what's his name now, Donald Trump. So there's going to be a lot of talk about the election. We don't know if the Consul General is going to have political talks today because there's a podium there where he's supposed to address the crowd. We don't know if that's going to happen, if he will talk anything politics, but there's that. But in the end, there's always traditional fireworks that they will do just by the Koyi waterfront, which is further down there. So those are the two things that I think the people here are going to look out for. See if the Consul General will speak about the forthcoming elections, and then, of course, at the end of the night, everyone will be looking forward to the iconic fireworks that they do on the 4th of July. But today is the first of all.
Thank you so much, Bernard Abeid, our correspondent, right there, giving us an update regarding that event. Bernard, thank you so much. You're watching News Central now. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We head to South Africa, where the Democratic Alliance leader, John Steenhuisen, has addressed the nation a day after the announcement of a new government with former opposition parties getting 12 out of 32 portfolios after the ruling ANC lost its outright parliamentary majority. According to Steenhuisen, who now heads the Ministry of Agriculture, the DA now has a meaningful and vital role to play in the reconstruction of the country.
When the DA said we would rescue South Africa from the doomsday scenario, we meant it. And with yesterday's formation of the new cabinet, DA voters can rest assured that we have kept our word and delivered on both elements of our strategic objective. The sheer weight and spread of these 12 portfolios amount to a recognition that the DA now has a meaningful and vital role to play in the reconstruction.
The Mangosuthu University of Technology, South African Energy Development Institute, and Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University are now jointly hosting the Energy, Water, Food and Climate Nexus Summit under the theme, What we Want is Possible. This landmark event will take place from 1st to 4th of July 2024 in Durban. The event is to draw attention to the shortcomings of the ways energy is currently produced, the threats and problems associated with water, particularly the quality of water the world over. And to unpack this, I am joined by Dr. Victor Iwu, who is the convener, Dean of the School of Environment at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, USA. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, the pleasure is all mine. I mean, how does the summit position Africa as a leader in addressing the challenges of climate change and also food security?
Absolutely. We chose Durban for one reason, to begin to solve the problems in Africa as it relates to access to energy, food security, and dealing with climate challenges here in Africa. The theme, we had captured 9 thematic themes that define the problems here in Africa that this summit will be addressing, providing solutions on them.
I mean, aside from what you have said, what are some of the innovative solutions coming out of Africa that will be highlighted, at the summit to tackle these global issues?
For example, Africa has already started dealing with climate change resilience in the way they are dealing with water shortages, for example. I've seen some innovations around that. I've seen some other innovations around greenhouse gas emissions. I've seen some innovations in particular, now they are beginning to grapple with the role of microorganisms, microbial systems in providing solutions to some of the contaminants that deal with water quality. These are all coming out here in South Africa. So we are here, this summit is meant to capture these thematic tracks and providing solutions to them.
Now, from an African standpoint, looking at our peculiarity as, an African for the African continent, how does the summit aim to elevate African indigenous knowledge, in the global conversation on climate resilience? I know you touched on a few things. Now, looking at it from the African indigenous knowledge on climate resilience and also sustainable food systems.
So here in Durban, we have invited participants from KwaZulu University, one of the indigenous universities here in Durban. We have invited them to be here. So that means they will be providing thoughts around this topic. So we have participants from around rural areas. That was the reason why I thought your question was right on point, trying to highlight the role of indigenous in climate resilience. We are here, by the way, to provide new technologies to deal with that. For example, we have the capability of harnessing big data to understanding greenhouse gas emission. We have the capability of being able to understand the predictions of future climate changes. We have the capability of having real-time data on water quality. With all of this real-time data and our ability to capture satellite data, we can make predictive models and predictions for the future on how to deal with climate change.
I know you touched on, we having a bigger data to address greenhouse emissions, but then I was just wondering, how does this summit intend to empower Africa, particularly African researchers now, and also policymakers to help, take more prominent roles when it comes to shaping international narratives regarding climate change?
So there are 2 objectives of this summit. One of these is to recruit and train students who provide solutions to these challenges. That's our number 1 objective, and that's number 1 outcome of the summit. The second being, we have to establish a new center of excellence where when we recruit these students, they would have a place where we can train them on these new innovations. Those are the 2 major outcomes I want to reemphasize. One is to recruit and train Africans who will have the skills in providing solutions. One. The second being to have an anchor, an infrastructure, a Nexus size enterprise where we would have the technologies to train students in this space.
Well, thank you so much for bringing light to this on the news. Dr. Victor Iwu, convener, Dean of School of Environment, USA. Many thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Up north, Mauritania's incumbent president, Mohamed Cheikh Ghazouani, has comfortably won re-election, receiving 56.12% of the votes in the first round of the presidential poll. This is according to results announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission chief on Monday. The victory gives the former army chief a second term as head of the vast desert country, seen as a rock of relative stability in Africa's volatile Sahel region and set to become a gas producer. Ghazouani plays well ahead of his main rival, anti-slavery activist Biram Dah Abeid, who won 22.1% of votes. Abeid said on Sunday he would not recognize the results of Seni, which he accused of being manipulated by the government.
Mohamed Cheikh Ghazouani حصل على 554,956 صوتا أي نسبة 56.12%.
The UK election has seen a significant number of candidates of British Nigerians running for office, and these candidates bring a unique perspective to the table, bridging the gap between two cultures and communities. Their presence in politics not only represents the changing demographics of the UK, but also provides opportunity for Nigerian voices to be heard and represented. For News Central, Afia Hagan has been taking a look.
At least 30 British Nigerian candidates will contest for seats in the UK's July 4th elections. Rishi Sunak's Conservative government is widely expected to be replaced by Keir Starmer's Labour Party. Democracy Club's analysis shows 20 British Nigerian candidates representing major parties like Labour, the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. Others are from smaller parties or running as independents. This election could lead to the most diverse parliament in British history, with more ethnic minorities, including Nigerians, vying for seats. Labour has the most British Nigerian candidates with 8. The Liberal Democrats will field 6 candidates. The Conservatives have 3 British Nigerian candidates seeking re-election. Independent candidates include those vying for seats with the Workers' Party of Britain and the Yoruba Party of the UK. The election will field 4,379 candidates, the highest number ever, surpassing the 2010 record of 4,093. The 650 constituencies have seen increased candidate numbers, with at least 5 per seat. The UK goes to the polls on Thursday, with results expected by Friday. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
Many poor countries in Africa face the harshest effects of climate change, severe droughts, vicious heat and dry land, but also unpredictable rain and devastating flooding. The shocks worsen conflicts and upend livelihoods because many people are farmers and they are having increasing vulnerability in the warming world. And these economic realities worsen Nigeria and many nations in the global south turn to developmental partners like the International Monetary Fund, assisting with financing. But have these really helped? Earlier, Kalu Aja, certified financial educator, spoke to us on these developments.
They're not talking about the leadership. They're not saying, hey, leadership, you can't pay yourselves high salaries or buy private jets. It's mostly policies that would affect the governed, right? Hey, remove subsidies, increase VAT. We don't hear them saying, put your government on minimum wage. That's one criticism I've heard that I sort of agree with, right? But if you look at Kenya's issue, look at Kenya. When the now president was campaigning, they were already speaking to the IMF for a loan. They were already talking to the IMF. IMF approved about $2.3 billion for them as a loan. And of course, IMF had already told them about the conditionalities. And when he was sworn in as the president,
the IMF released about 936 million to Kenya. And when they released those funds, IMF told the Kenyan government that we're releasing these funds because you're going to have to go back and release revenues from Kenya. And that's why Kenya passed that Finance Act, the 2024 Finance Act, that has caused the upheaval. So the leadership knew that they were going to increase taxes, but when they were campaigning, they said nothing about it. So of course the youth are like, what's going on here? Why are you increasing our taxes? Why can't you cut down on your expenses? This is the point. IMF didn't make Kenya go broke.
In sports, a newly promoted Nigerian Premier Football League side, Ikorodu City, have confirmed its participation in the upcoming 2024-25 NPFL season. The club's football director, Tobi Adebola, refuted claims on social media after speculation arose that Ikorodu City was considering selling its sport. The Oga Boys joined Nasarawa United, Beyond Limits, and FA Cup winners El Kanemi Warriors as promoted teams, replacing Sporting Lagos, Heartland FC, Doma United, and Gombe United. Super Eagles and Atlanta forward Adebola Lookman has been awarded the Best African International Player for the year at the prestigious Ghana Football Awards. The event held in Accra, Ghana, celebrated the exceptional contributions of African footballers across various categories. Lookman, who has been a standout performer for Atlanta in Serie A, was recognized for his remarkable achievement and impact on the international stage. The 26-year-old forward has enjoyed a stellar season, showcasing his skills, speed, and scoring prowess. His performances have not only elevated his club's standing in the league, but have also made him a fan favorite and a respected figure in African football. The Super Eagles star's victory in the Best African International category highlights his exceptional talent and the significant impact he has made in European football. Lookman is an online video presentation expressed his gratitude to the organizers. And that's all on the news. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Vice President Kashim Shettima visits as death toll from Borno suicide attacks rises to 32. Court dismisses Nnamdi Kanu's $1 billion suit against the Nigerian government. Mauritania's incumbent Ghazouani wins re-election with 56.12% of votes. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.